Well, many of the early protests against the killing of George Floyd turned violent, with recent demonstrations remaining more peaceful. Most activists say they do not want to be lumped in with rioters, but the line dividing the two has become blurred. I do want to bring in the Honorary Chair of Tea Party Patriots, Beth Martin, to talk more about that distinction. Hi, Jenny. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you've led peaceful protests in Washington, including some of the largest conservative protests over the years. How does the violence and looting seen in the early days of these protests actually hurt the message of those trying to demonstrate peacefully?
Well, it hurts it tremendously. The people who are going in and being agitators and causing such terrible destruction of property wind up scaring some people from wanting to attend who might have attended otherwise. And it gives a bad reputation for the peaceful protesters. I think by and large, the vast supermajority of the people who are out are peaceful protesters, but those few people who are causing such problems wind up spoiling the reputation for everybody.
And how can those protesters who are looking to remain peaceful and to exercise their First Amendment rights, how can they separate themselves from those who are maybe violent or maybe committing crimes?
Well, what we normally did was we would look to local law enforcement, but these protests, a lot of the protests are against local law enforcement, so that creates a bit of a challenge for the people who are peaceful protesters. One of the best things they can do is just watch out while they see things happening, and I've seen several different videos online where a particular person would call out one of the troublemakers, lawbreakers, whichever way you want to call it, who were destroying property and saying, "You're not with us. It's not part of our movement. That doesn't help the African American community." And the more that you can do that and film it, the better you wind up preserving your reputation.
All of these protests do come on top of a crisis that America was already facing with the coronavirus pandemic. What part do you think that plays in all of this? And could this partially be a result of people not having money and having pent-up energy and anger, not having anywhere to go really from being under these stay-at-home orders for 3 months or more?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with it, but let me be very, very clear. What happened to George Floyd was wrong. It was a terrible thing to happen, and I can understand wanting to protest against that and to demand that police departments everywhere clean out the people who are causing problems, the members of their force who are repeat offenders. So I'm on a different political side than probably what a lot of the people who are protesting are, but I still can understand that and appreciate that and find common ground with them. Now, with that said, I think that there's a lot of pent-up energy around the entire country. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of sadness. And so when a moment like this happens, like what happened to George Floyd, everything just kind of pulled together at the right time to be able to spark such large protests around the entire country. And I'm sure there were some groups who are helping them organize, and I also think some of it was spontaneous or shared through social media, and I don't discount the fact that some of it was truly spontaneous and not very well organized.
You mentioned the need for police reform across the country. What do you think, though, about the extreme left calls to defund police stations across the country?
I think that is a huge problem. It will create chaos. It will create lawlessness. You will wind up having people who take the law into their own hands. I think you will wind up with a lot more crime, a lot more violence, a lot more rape, and a lot more murder. So I think it's a very dangerous path for them to go down.
All right, Beth Martin, the Honorary Chair of Tea Party Patriots, joining us to discuss the distinction between rioters and peaceful protesters. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, Jenny.
Thanks for having me.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.